We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first thing on the agenda is a public hearing to discuss the acceptance of unanticipated funds. Charlie, you want to lead that discussion?
We are fortunate, like many other towns, that the state has voted to give us money back.
Yay!
So
we
will take it. The unanticipated that we will receive this year, which we actually have already received, is $36,862.24. The reason why we accept it as unanticipated is it gives us the ability to go ahead and expend it for items that we may see fit the rest of the year.
Excellent.
Next year we are going to get the same amount. We're expecting the same amount, but that would be considered shared revenue.
Okay.
That will be on the MS4.
Oh, okay.
So it's anticipated it will be in the revenue budget.
Okay. So do we have any comments or questions from?
This is tied to school, isn't it? The school population. That's what it's based
Yeah,
on.
There's a formula base to it. Yep.
Any other comments or concerns from the board or the public? In that case, I will entertain a motion to approve the amount of $36,862.24 as unanticipated funds from the state.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Well, that's really good news.
Yeah. They don't
All right.
really give us much money.
All right. Official call to order, roll call, Eli Badger, Kathleen DeWolf.
Here.
Lee Sharps.
Here.
Casey Barney. Here. Fran Newton here. Do we have any public comments on the agenda? Seeing none, I will go to the approval of minutes. We have had a meeting on October 21st, 2019. Are there any comments or corrections?
I was hard pressed. I told Charlie to find any corrections on any of these.
Oh,
I
Really?
can't find any either.
oh, Charlie,
Geez.
you done good.
Some in there.
Wow.
Remember
Look
that
harder.
when we do his evaluation.
Yeah, exactly. Hearing no corrections, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of October 21st as written.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes from October 24th.
I didn't find any.
Actually, on the 21st, I have a no vote. I wasn't at the 21st.
Oh, okay.
And I still couldn't find anything wrong.
Anything on the 24th, Lee?
No.
Okay. Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of October 24th as written.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. October 29th.
Did you find anything? No.
I couldn't.
know. Ooh.
I was like, really looking. I know. Good job.
Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of a Tuesday, October 29th as written.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it again.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Excellent. Okay, new business. We have Warren Street Architects, L.W. Packard Mill Building Assessment Report.
I can go through the slides here. You can see that this is obviously the mill here. We have a site plan here. It shows this existing site. You can see the dark outline is the building itself, and you can see some property lines around it. It's a 1.057 acre site. And I made some estimates of what the floor areas are. It's only based on casual observations from walking through the building. I didn't take measurements.
Okay.
But I did measure the building on the site plan and aerial photographs, and my guess is that the total floor area was around 74,000 square feet.
Wow.
The largest floor was 21,800. So existing site conditions, the building faces Mill Street, which is, I don't believe, is that a town-owned street?
Yes.
It is?
Mill Street is.
Because this is different.
Yeah, I know.
That's on Hill,
Casey's hat's in the way.
Extension, and
Good, good.
the
That's-
closest,
Was that discontinued?
that Hill is discontinued as a town, as is portions of Mechanic Street.
Do we have a laser pointer here? Anybody?
No,
I forgot mine.
Stand up, yeah. But anyways, yeah. Yeah, I can't really use it, I guess you can stand up.
go ahead.
Good.
There's a bridge, actually, you can see.
Nice work,
It might be good to see, I'll just stand up here.
Okay.
This is what I'm calling Mill Street, and I believe that's what it's labeled.
No.
Is that not correct? Okay.
That's Hill Ave.
This is Hill Ave?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an existing bridge here.
Yes.
Yeah.
For some reason, the site plan actually calls it out as,
All,
am I saying Hill Street?
it,
Okay, maybe I'm saying Hill Street rather than.
yes, it is Hill.
This is Hill, there's Mill.
Okay, yeah, so my PowerPoint has a typo on it.
Okay.
Well, they
So that's
rhyme.
Mill Street.
Yeah.
Building faces Hill
Hill
Street,
Street, yes.
which is that actually a town road or is that?
Not
discontinued?
anymore.
Okay.
Discontinued.
Right.
Part,
Yeah,
Parts of it are, yeah.
David should know.
So anyways, parts
Oh,
of
that's
it,
right.
so the building faces Hill Street, parts of which are discontinued. And the existing mill has been subdivided. I believe that happened in 1999
no,
or 2002.
starting there.
So it creates a condition within the building of basically you have, they call it a zero lot line condition. So you have buildings right next to other buildings with no separation. And other portions of this building are within 10 feet of the property lines. Basically, the biggest issue is at Hill Street. So that's another issue with proximity of the building to a property line. The site's generally constricted between a ridge, which you can, it's like to the right of us in this photograph here, and the Squam River. There's no parking on the site. The most viable access to the building is via Bridge Street, which via a bridge on Hill Street to Mill Street.
Right.
The building is served by electricity, municipal water. The municipal sewer, I know goes through another portion of another property of the existing mill building, and I don't know if that's the El Patco building.
Yes.
And there are no known rights of way to protect access to this building and or utility access to this building. Existing building structure, the basement and the first floor primarily, the basement is reinforced concrete and steel, and it's very close to the level of the Squam River, and it's a very moist condition down there. So you can see in this lower photograph here, you can see a lot of the structures rusted, and you can't see the concrete, but a lot of the concrete, the rebar in the concrete has gotten wet and has spalled. So a lot of the concrete and steel is in poor condition. The first floor is a combination of steel, unreinforced load-bearing masonry, timber, and wood frame walls. And there are some locations where there's been a water leak, undetected water leak, so that a portion of the floor on the second floor has collapsed. Also causing portions of the reinforced masonry wall below to collapse as well. Second floor above, it's a mixture of steel, timber, and wood frame walls. Hazardous materials. There's been a previous report from the Novus group. It was the think that was done maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, phase
Environmental
1 and
survey.
phase 2?
Yeah.
So the phase 2 ESA, they did a preliminary just analysis of hazardous materials on the site, and they did find arsenic contamination in the topsoil and PFOAs in the groundwater, and both of those conditions, you know, the scope of that condition is not really known, so they recommend testing for both of those conditions. There's also asbestos in the building on the cladding and other parts, other components. It's lead-based paint and some PCBs were found. So the existing building envelope, so the outside walls, the floor, and the roofs. The walls are, you can see the white siding. That's a painted asbestos siding. And there's also some areas of metal, painted metal siding. I'm assuming it's wood framing, because that seemed the most logical. We didn't see it, we didn't observe the framing of the building, but it's almost, yes, certainly wood framing. And we assume it's insulated, but that was not observed either. And then the windows are wood and metal, single glazed windows. A lot of the glass has been broken. Painted wood and metal doors. The roof is a combination of asphalt shingles, EPDM, rubber membrane, and other types of membranes, TPOs or PVC membranes. And there was fiberglass insulation in the attic of the building that was visible. And then the floor is concrete slab on grade. So with any kind of renovation to the building, there's certain building codes that would be applicable to the renovation. And the primary one here is the International Existing Building Code, which the state of New Hampshire has recently updated it to the 2015 code. And that code is divided into four different levels of work, depending on the amount of work you're doing to the building. But our building, the mill would be classified as a class 3 or level 3 renovation, which is kind of the highest level. It's when you have a work area of over 50% of the building, it's a class 3, a level 3 renovation. So it requires portions of the building to meet the IBC, which is the International Building Code, the code that you need to follow when it's a new building. Also, there's the International Energy Conservation Code, which is energy efficiency, how much you need to insulate the building. And then there's other codes that are required by the New Hampshire State Building Code, which at this stage aren't really critical to the study. Other standards are Americans with Disability Acts, with Disability Act, and if there were housing, if this were to be a housing project, there's usually other standards that are attached to that. There's the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority; they have standards, Fair Housing Act, things such as that. Code recognizes this building as a moderate hazard factory. Group F1, and construction type is 5B, which means basically wood stud. So it's the least stringent, or it's the most stringent. It's the type of construction that it's basically the building is smaller. You have more limits on the 5B construction because it's the least fireproof construction there is. And I've already talked about the IEBC classification, level 3 alteration, and also change of occupancy. So, some of the challenges to redevelopment, as we mentioned, access to the site and utility connections. Existing building, the existing bridge that is kind of the most feasible access to the site needs to have a structural evaluation to see, it can handle vehicles and pedestrians. And then also securing easements and right-of-ways to have utilities and have site access that would need to be pursued. Parking is an issue on the site, and one option would be potentially to demolish part of the building to provide parking on the site, and also potential. I mean, you have there's not really any accessible parking unless you demolish part of the building. So and you would need that if you were to be housing, for example. There's parking across Mill Street, which could be an option for some of the parking, depending on the ownership of that property. Handicapped accessibility, the site is a challenging site, a lot of topography, so there definitely need to be some site work to get access to that building. And then environmental remediation. Our report doesn't really describe how much remediation would have to happen in different situations, because if it were, it varies depending on if it's residential or if it's going to be a commercial property, and the study has to go through the whole process through the New Hampshire DES. So that wasn't really, I couldn't really get clarity on what was the extent of the environmental remediation. The critical part on the building is really the structural issues, and primarily in the basement. The structural engineer believes that a large portion of the foundation would have to be replaced because of the rusting steel and the deteriorating concrete. So that's one challenge. The only issue with that is that in the International Existing Building Code, if you have over 30% of the structure being altered, you have to design the entire structure to meet current lateral forces. So that's any kind of seismic forces, any kind of wind sources. So the entire building would then have to meet current structural code. So that would be a challenge. I mean, it could be done, but it makes it a lot more difficult.
Challenge.
So I guess I summarized some of these things on the last slide. But so reuse as a factory, F1, moderate hazard factory, is still a level 3 alteration. So we need to create new means of egress, so stairs, ramps, corridors, fire rate the existing openings and shafts in the building. Also, we'd have to bring in a sprinkler system for the entire building and a fire alarm. Let's see, also accessibility. You have to spend 20% of the project cost to provide accessibility to the building, and within the building. And then, as I mentioned before, it would be, because you have to replace a lot of the structure in the basement, it would be considered a substantial structural alteration. So where more than 30% of the floor or roof area has been, or is being proposed to be involved in a structural alteration within a 5-year period, the entire structure needs to comply with lateral and loading for wind and seismic forces. So, and also a large portion of the building envelope would have to be brought up to any of the envelope that the exterior wall that you're altering would need to be brought up to existing energy code. So they've got to be re-insulated and insulated more than they were before. Exterior walls within 10 feet of the property line would require a 1-hour rating. So change of use to a S2 low hazard storage or an F2 low hazard factory, same requirements as F1 above. To change it to an R2 residential apartments, we're limited to 21,000 square feet per floor. We're limited to 3 stories, and the building is a basement, which isn't considered a story, and then 3 stories in an attic. So the attic would have to be wouldn't be able to be used. It'd be just basically an empty space.
It'd be cool if it was done well.
And then also, because the building is contiguous with other structures, like the El Paco building, and then the other building across the Squam River. Portions of the building would have to be demolished, or you have to build fire barriers to provide separation between the existing building and any adjacent buildings. Normally, you would have to do a firewall, which is a self-supporting firewall, but the existing building code allows you to make that a fire barrier, which is much easier to achieve. All right, any questions?
It's overwhelming.
Well, I hope the public that wonders why we haven't done anything to that building or what we could do with the building, I think this basically spells it out.
Yeah.
We need a multimillionaire to come in and make it into
Yeah.
apartments like Mill Falls.
Yeah,
That would be nice. That would look nice.
Right.
no.
Yeah.
So, can you go back? You all done these slides?
Yeah.
Can you go back to the footprint real quick?
Yeah.
A concern of mine personally is that if the private sector does not step in somehow, some way, and we can't coordinate with maybe a nonprofit to get enough funds to redevelop this, because this is a major project. We had a nonprofit walk through with us, and come on, Zach, they kind of, you'd agree, they walked away, so to speak, because it's just too much for them. And with that being said, a concern of mine is that if there's ever anything that happens to this building, that falls onto the town.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what are our other resources to kind of go ahead and take care of it if something were to happen?
To take care of it as far as,
Let me frame it like this. What sections would have to be torn down?
Where it connects to El Paco, I would think. For one thing, that'd have to be separated.
Do we have to tear the building down and start all
Well-
over?
Be honest.
I made the report basically to just try to state the facts that I
Yeah.
and
Yes.
not
No,
go
we
into
understand that.
into the
Yeah.
opinion
But like
part.
what percentage would be viable to keep, I guess?
It's
Oh, way to
that
put it.
structural issue in
Yeah.
the basement.
Well,
You can't do anything
Anything.
until you fix that problem, and that yeah.
Pretty basic.
So
yeah,
I think because there's there's actually a company operating below that.
There was
I'd imagine it's a hazard to them having an
There is
unoccupied building attached to
concern
them.
about fire
Yeah.
by the neighbors, the other occupants of the mill, and the fire department. They have done training around that building on how to protect the other buildings and avoid going into that building for the safety of the firefighters. So yeah, there's some great concern. We did have a summit, if you will, a couple years ago, and invited the other mill owners and some other state officials and whatnot, and some of the mill owners expressed a desire to keep it, and but I think that the concerns about its safety are overriding
Yes.
the possible use
Yes.
of it. So we
Yeah.
need to find out how we get funds to have it taken down, which would
Yeah.
benefit all of the other
you
buildings.
go.
I
because
honestly
you
think
could
go.
create
that's
parking.
That's what we should do.
well. The partner Jonathan Hawley at our office, we struggled just to figure out who would do this,
Yeah.
who would renovate it to be a house.
Yeah,
housing.
exactly.
No.
With
And
its
we
limitations.
had Sal. I don't remember her last name right now, but from Laconia Housing,
Yes.
and she just
No.
was
No.
not interested.
Yeah.
And I. So who else would take on the building? I don't know.
Alex
And,
already said no.
Because it's not like it's the only building in the region that's
Right.
vacant and could attract an entrepreneur.
Right.
There are other buildings that are probably better suited, and
Yeah,
that would not
exactly.
be as much of a challenge.
Yeah.
So
The other problem I see is that there's only a little over 1 acre site, and that's like minimal. I'm surprised that all fits on 1 acre.
Well, it's because it's cantilevered into
I
the
know.
ground, so.
But it's another problem, you know?
So that's a good question. I don't know if the state has funds for demolition or
If we own the building,
Yeah, there were funds for cleanup if
There
we
will be
owned the
next year.
building. But we'd have to take it for taxes, and of course, there's concern in the town, if we take it for taxes, you know, then we have increased liability, we have insurance issues. So we're sort of caught between the proverbial rock and a
there's
hard
some way
place.
Yeah.
to know that you had a certain time span where you could take the building and then you have 2 years and you'll know it'll be demolished in 2 years. Then
Right.
Maybe it's seems
Right.
a more feasible way
Right.
to look at it, but
You know, it just stands there as an ongoing hazard, and there really are no good options if we just don't have the funds to take it down. But we risk every day something going on with that building. And there was a time when kids would get in there and party, and you know, I think they've sealed it up pretty well, but that was a huge concern for life safety risks. So
I would be concerned with, I don't know with what's on the other side of the Squam River, but I know that the company below is operating. And,
yes, of course they are.
And I don't know what kind of fire separation they have.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's probably not a firewall.
No.
So if there's a fire, their business could be in danger.
Well,
you
they
know,
know
so,
that too. Yeah.
Which is.
And it's an environmental hazard waiting to happen. You know, if something happens to that, it gets into the Squam River.
Yes, and
And
asbestos, arsenic,
yeah,
Yeah.
so
you know, PVC, it's all not good.
definitely not good.
But we have it, we have a document.
And appreciate the work you did.
Yes,
And I don't think that there were
absolutely.
any surprises in your
No,
report.
not really.
We've toured it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Never know.
you know,
Before I came, I was hoping that it would actually be a viable project. 'cause
we
it-
were
it's
too.
like-
We were hoping
It
for a
sounded
miracle,
exciting,
but not
yeah.
really expecting one.
No,
So,
no.
well, thank you.
Can
Thank
I ask
you.
if anyone has
Yeah,
questions
please.
for Aaron?
Any?
I would be
D?
curious. I've seen how this thing has been going on over for a year.
Yeah.
But the town doesn't own this property right now.
Right.
No.
But it's been not taxes paid on it for years.
For years, right?
So if something should happen, isn't the town potentially liable anyway?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
Exactly. That's why we're in such a tough
But I'm
position.
glad you asked that,
Yeah,
because
good question.
you're sitting there asking that question
question.
instead of us saying, you know.
Right.
Yeah, if it burns, we would have to clean, the town would have to clean it up.
Yeah.
That's right.
And would you be responsible, just say there was somebody in there? How's that coming?
Exactly.
So I don't,
These are all very serious concerns that we've had for some time.
can you insure yourself against that?
No.
Because you don't own it.
'Cause we-
Right.
Well,
Well, even if we did own it, our broker said that we're not going to insure that.
Yeah.
But for,
I
like,
don't think
not
they'd
for
touch it.
property, but for, say, loss of life or something like that happen.
It's an attractive nuisance,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which
there's been squatters in
means
there.
the culpability is on us.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I've thought since the building was sold, that the only thing to do is tear it down.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's
I'd
not
like to
my
see it come
decision.
down, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it could be a pretty little park in there. The river could be beautiful once it's exposed from that ugly building, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
it
be
would certainly
pretty.
be a benefit to other tenants.
Yeah.
You know, we have one gentleman who's putting in a distillery at one end of it,
Right.
and a tasting room. I'm sure he'd love to have that building gone.
Yeah, right.
It's right,
Right.
On the Mill
It's the
Street
On
side.
the Mill Street side, yeah.
Yeah.
on Mill
Okay.
Street, the Scribner building, what is known as the Scribner
Right.
building, is where a distillery is going.
That's the brick building.
That's
Yes,
the brick
yes,
building.
yes.
The concrete slab is 33 North, which is a distribution center. The same gentleman that owns the piece of property that was in question owns directly across the hill
This little piece?
to there, and there's an it was subdivided
Same owner.
with
Yeah. An air wall.
with an air
Yeah,
wall.
There's non-existing
But
wall.
not
Non-existing.
Non-existing
Air
wall.
wall, I like that
This
term.
owner and
That's a
this
good
is a
one.
separate owner.
invisible wall.
I see.
I like the air wall term, that's a good one.
So how do you separate that from?
Well, and its roof is caved in, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
you know.
The roof is caved in. There are still a couple of little storage areas just up from,
Yeah, with the holes in the roof and
yeah. Well, those are
over, yeah.
over
that's it.
beyond where general property zones.
So, yeah.
It's a mess. Yes.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Go right ahead.
There's sort of an interdependence between this building and the buildings adjacent, both from environmental and envelope point of view. And is there a structural connection between them? I mean, if you tear down the middle one, does these gray ones start to fall down themselves? Or?
Jenga tower?
There,
I don't.
Oh, you're talking about
Yeah.
I'm just
Alpaco?
like looking at it and going,
Well,
well,
it's-
who pays for putting?
It could,
But right, they have to have a wall there. What
they
is
probably
there
could.
now?
It
Just
could
corrugated
possibly
metal?
do
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With part of the loading dock?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can see the brick portion.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
the
that's
other.
spanning the Squam River.
Right,
So that's the piece that's attached to the Squam River. Oh, to the other building across the Squam River.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, you would have to
But-
seal off those.
And you
other
can see it
buildings.
through the floor.
Yeah, so I don't know what's on the other side of that. There, it might. It's a brick structure, so I'm assuming the existing brick wall is still there.
Because you might need a partnership with the other building owners in order to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm
And
sure there
that-
would be.
We've had a few conversations with them.
They're happy
Interested,
with
Norm? Another little project you might like to take on?
This is yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah,
Oh,
too bad.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, again, thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
yes.
Thank you.
We'll have to do some more studying.
Okay. I'll send the final.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Excellent.
Yep.
And
Yes, that was
Yeah.
a good, that was
Yeah.
a good draft too.
Yep.
hopefully maybe
pictures.
put it on the website,
Good
so.
idea.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay.
idea, yeah. With the summary.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
PowerPoint, It's really good.
So if we tour it again, we'll probably have to get one of those ropes to hold on to like the kids use
Yeah,
in the school
exactly,
down
so
to
we
the
don't-
booster club.
I really don't, I've been in there twice, that's
So
enough.
Yeah.
it's a little scary.
It's very scary. Okay.
Good
well,
job.
Thank you again
Thank you. Yes.
for
Thank you.
all your work. Okay, we have Christopher Williams Architects, Ashland Town Hall Planning for Elchip.
Nice.
So if you could please introduce
Thank you.
yourself. to
Yes, my name is
everybody.
Norman Larson.
Okay.
I'm an architect with Chris Williams Architects in Meredith. And we've been looking at the Ashland Town Hall. And if he's going to look at on this, what's on the sheets, I'll leave it there.
Okay.
My report is not nearly as thin as the
Wow.
last one. And I brought 3 copies,
Okay.
hard copies for you to keep because I consider this to be a draft.
Yep.
Mostly because I would like to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
And I can share an electronic version with Charlie if he wants to share it around. But I would ask,
He better have a
please,
hard
Yeah.
copy.
but I would ask that you not
Right on
not
it.
share the hard copy
Oh.
to the internet
That's fine.
until
Oh,
it's
no.
finalized.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The important parts of what's in there is in the short, sort of just the conclusion.
Okay.
Okay.
So I brought a hard copy for everybody. I think.
Okay, great.
That's fine. And actually, you can keep this. I'll take. Because you sound like you're the proofreader, so there's good luck. Lots of stuff in here.
But I'm not gonna do that to it.
So that's fine. Well, feel free. But
That's funny.
the point is, so we looked at the building, and unlike the building we just talked about, this one is much more worth saving.
Salvageable.
Yes.
That's a solid one. There's a reasonable set of steps to get there.
Okay.
And just to sort of go over, the process that got us to here is we started back more than a year ago looking at the history of the building and walking through and looking at the specifics of the condition of what was there in terms of what was sound and good and worth keeping,
Right.
what needed to be repaired, what needed to be replaced, and that sort of thing.
We walked through with the structural engineer, and his report is in the base, in the back of this. It's behind the drawings. It's relatively short, and his thoughts are incorporated into the working document itself and the recommendations. Then we worked with all the staff and with you guys and the users of the building and the police department to look at what purposes the building is serving now and what it needs to serve in the longer term. So we did a sort of a long study, and that's the first set of these documents is a list of like what the recommended spaces are to serve the town's needs in the in sort of the 20 to 30 year window. I think 20 years is the target time that we're looking for, because we don't want to renovate this and then have it be obsolete as soon as the construction is complete.
Right.
And we went over that and sought approval from the town, and then we designed several different options for trying to look at how to get everything that's in the building program into the actual building. And with the police department there, that specifically required a sally port on the site. And we looked at solutions that involved a sally port to the east side of the site, which is the side toward the residential yard in the back that's very narrow.
Yeah.
The only part of the site that's not paved already.
Yes.
Okay.
In addition to that, I made a suggestion that really the challenge is there's just too much program and not enough building. And it would make more sense, one of the things to think about seriously would be to move the police department out.
And we've talked about that.
And
we've
the end decision
seriously
was
talked
to
about
go
that.
ahead and pursue that as the design option. So that is what has like come about. And the design drawings that are shown here reflect the development of that design to the point that, like, you know, down the road, that's what we'd be heading for.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the sally port in the back, did you also look at, I always wondered if you'd be able to put like an addition over here on this side, where the side door is, in between this and the jail?
There's a possibility to do that, but the challenge is that you know, we're trying to keep in mind the historic context of the building itself,
Right.
and
Oh, yeah, it would cover up that
creating
side.
creating an intersecting piece like that would, you know, fill it up, would mask not only the town hall but also the lobby building itself.
Yeah, you're
So
right,
those are
and
all
it
hidden
would
back there.
cover up all those windows on that side.
Okay.
That's right. It's a part of the building that's been impacted already,
Right.
so it's not a terrible choice. But when it came to looking at what the design could be, it made sense to put it to the back. But we were limited
Right.
to a single vehicle, which isn't the best. The police department would really benefit from having a space for
Right.
two
Yeah.
cruisers out of the weather.
Right.
It's not just a place to move somebody safely, which is a very important part and reason that, you know, every police department ought to have it. But it is also a place that lets the cars stay ready, because when
Right.
you have to go, the last thing you want to do is like stand out there and scrape the
Right.
I know.
frost off the
That's
windshield
true.
Right.
on your way to a call.
Right.
You know, that was something I never realized.
I never thought about that
I never did. I
aspect.
said, why did they keep them
But-
running?
Yeah, well,
it never occurred to me.
Tony
No.
explained that a couple
Yeah.
of years ago.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense, but
it makes sense. It's a waste of gas, but they have to do it.
Yeah.
So
Right, it's
yeah.
part of
Yeah,
preparedness.
I
Yeah,
never even
right.
thought about it, but that's a good
So,
point.
so in the packets are drawings of the existing building conditions and of this design. And this piece of paper is just a large version. The actual drawing size is correct in that packet.
Okay.
Okay.
It's really meant to be 11 by 17. So these drawings are a quarter inch scale.
Okay.
You're welcome to keep it for your purposes. But what this does down the road is it looks to renovate the building so that it becomes accessible to everyone, which is sort of one of the fundamental problems. The building it has a front door that's not accessible and has a back door that, like, well, if you knock on the door and you can get somebody's attention by ringing the bell, then you can come in.
I don't think the bell worked.
I don't even know if it's wide, wide
You know,
enough.
then you have to sort of navigate around the
wheelchair.
desks,
I
and so you
know.
sort of
Yeah.
have a violation of the private areas and the public areas.
Yeah, you're right.
So this solution addresses that by creating kind of a public way that is in between the two doors. So you come in the front door,
Yeah.
and you come in the side door. You both get to a common lobby area that moves to a service
like
counter
that.
where all of the town that's working with the public
Yeah.
can work over that single service
Yeah.
counter.
Nice big.
So that is the
That's a
existing
great
police
idea.
department down there.
No, the existing police department right now
Oh,
is
it's
over
here.
here.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm
Okay,
just
so
trying to
this is
get,
the
oh,
current
that's
front
the
door.
front door. Okay, I'm just trying to get the orientation.
Oh,
So-
I like that. I like that design.
And so the service counter is all standing height.
Yeah.
And it was worked across the way, but one of the things you need to address is handicap accessibility for someone who's in a wheelchair. Working
Yes.
the counter, that's a very artificial
Yes.
place to work. And rather than cutting a low counter, what we've done is we've integrated a small conference room right here at the end.
Oh.
So that anybody could come and sit here. So somebody who's in a wheelchair could sit here with
Oh, that's-
whoever they're
that's
meeting with. Or,
Want to look? Sorry, Norman.
oh no,
Please.
please.
Anyone out
And
there
I was going to say, there's more
Yeah.
chairs here, people
Yeah.
can crowd
Yeah.
around.
Come
I
on
was
up.
gonna say that too. Come on up.
David. David. You're too short.
Yeah.
David. David, have a seat.
Hey, David, you want this one here?
I need it back though. This is the draft.
So,
I like that. I never.
Norman and
would have thought
I,
of doing
Norman and I
that.
worked on this
That's great.
Hang on to that. We'll just
for
kind of look.
good 6 months, I think, Norman.
Wow.
so this is worked through,
I've seen it.
and
Good,
it's
lot of work.
it's evolved to now include the water clerk and electric clerk in this area as well.
Yes.
Oh.
So
okay.
these are people that weren't, when we originally did the building program, they weren't intended to come there.
Right.
Right.
And it was only really after the notion of taking the police
Oh,
out
Oh,
yeah.
right.
that we started thinking about, well, who, there's a balancing act here.
Yep.
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 And I didn't get into the details of that in the, talking very much about the other place where the police might go. We also took and put, so the public restroom is now in this front corner, so it's in the
nice.
public area
Yeah.
of the space,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
the room that's in that awkward space underneath the stairs.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean my
Oh,
office?
yeah, I was gonna say, that's Charlie's
Awkward
office,
space.
yeah.
And so
That
the town-
awkward space.
That awkward space.
It is kind of awkward.
That's decent.
And so,
Great plan.
Troll lives.
and so the town manager moves out to this area,
Okay.
where, again, he's still accessible directly to the public as well as
Right.
to the staff.
Yeah.
But he can hide.
And he can choose to, he can close his blind or not.
Uh-huh.
That's great.
I love it.
I love it. I love it too.
And part of the reason we have so much flexibility here is when this building was renovated previously, in the prior to 1952, this was a two-story space.
Yeah.
Right.
And when they came in and added that second floor, they pretty much obliterated most of the interior finishes.
Yeah.
So we're working hard to hold on to what is in the exterior, and some of which is revealed in some of the historic fabric that's revealed in the second floor and the third floor. But in this area, we have a lot of flexibility because somebody else already did this once before.
Yep.
So we're sort of following in those footsteps. One of the challenges, the building has two separate structural systems. When it was built originally, it was built with that attic floor being clear span across the hall. And so you can see in the second floor, there are those sort of special trusses
Yes.
that are made up so that that floor can span the whole of the building.
Right.
Now that's a light framing compared to today's standards. And all the structural engineers have great concerns about using that space for more loading than is currently allowed.
Yeah.
You're currently using it for, which is light storage.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's different than having like rows of cabinets
Right.
filled with papers
Right.
end to end.
Yeah.
And so one of the questions that's in, to be decided is the question of like, to what level do we want to take that storage space? Because in the proposed solution, that third floor is still used for storage,
Right. Light storage.
light, and it's used for light storage. There are challenges to like making it be useful for some other purpose, and the building program that we laid out for what the town needs in terms of meeting space doesn't need a second hall. But one of the nice things about using it for storage conceivably is you could leave the space much as it is, so that down the road in 50 years when there's another set of uses by the future people of the town of Ashland, it could be put back in service again. But we still would be taking out the sort of really creepy, scary fire escape. I think it's sound, but I don't think it's safe.
Uh-huh.
You said something, not to interrupt, but talking about that floor, You said somewhere in this that it needed to still have floor reinforcement, even if we were to use it for light storage?
For light storage, it's okay. I think that's the
Okay.
conclusion.
What's
But if you
being
want,
used
if you
for
want
now?
to use it for heavy storage,
Anything else.
which, by concentrating stuff up there, then you'd want to take steps to improve it. And there are ways to do that. And we've thought about those and identified some of those. It's just a question
okay.
of whether the town wants to.
Go that route?
Yeah, so light storage right now is unprotected paper.
Mm-hmm.
If you're probably storing it in, say, fireproof cabinetry, does that become heavy storage?
Oh, yeah.
Depends on the size of
point.
your fireproof cabinetry.
Yeah,
I would
How
say.
many?
right.
And how
How
many you
many?
put it, and how much space you have between them.
It is
Yeah.
all unprotected paper, all right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Because-
just in boxes on shelves up there.
Because the two ways to that structural system could be enhanced two ways, and I don't love them, but they are necessary for making the space work. It's sort of nice to be able to see that structure in the space below, and the ceiling in the hearing room, which was one of the two classrooms they built in the 1950s, is exposed. Beaded board ceiling that was like the original ceiling of the hall. But the two ways that we could beef up the floor system, which primarily is suffering according to an earlier engineer study done in 1984 by HEB engineers, is the primary members. And you can see when you go up there that the flooring in the space has been removed, because when HEB did their study, they actually did demolition and looked at the joists and the beams and presumably the connection, though the letter doesn't actually say that. And then what they identify is it's the beam itself, and that sort of early industrial truss isn't quite cutting it. Two things that we could do is we could take and add material to both sides of the beam so that it would essentially be stiffer and deeper, and that could still let it be a clear span. Or the second floor, when they added the second floor in place, what they did is they cast piers down the middle of the building and put in steel posts that are in the middle of the space. They're still here.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, and so those in the drawings, that structural system is on the even numbers 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Okay. So we could conceivably add a structural bearing line at the ceiling level,
Okay.
hidden inside that ceiling between the first and the second floor, and locate new posts underneath the upper members,
Got
which
it.
are these ones that are like decimal places,
Yep.
4.2, 3.6. They're part way across between 2 and 3. So I've given them numbers that like sort of indicates about how far they are.
Yep.
So we could do that as another solution. So we didn't engineer a solution. We've identified two potential ways to that it could be addressed. But there's a cost to engineering it, and there's a cost to doing it.
Of course.
And if you want to just use it for light storage, well, maybe you don't want to do that.
Right.
That's something that I think we'd want to explore as we go forward.
Right.
Okay. So that sets out the main level. There's an elevator, and the elevator had to go in a place that we were working very hard to put it in a place that didn't interfere with the two conflicting structural systems. Because not only is there the transverse pieces, there's also long bearing lines along the building in this direction. So the elevator had to go outside of this and
Yeah,
forward of that and whatever. So
Yeah.
the end place we ended up putting it here is at the vestibule. So it's
But that-
it's sort
that's
of
good.
annoying because this is where the handicapped entrance is. So
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah, but
actually
that's
pass
good.
through.
Yeah.
That's
But
good.
it's still like at a common
Yeah.
place where people know where it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And most people who ride an elevator are not in a wheelchair.
Right.
They just would like to take the elevator instead of using the stairs.
Right.
So it's in a perfect place where people are coming in the front entry to see it and be able to use it. On the second floor, we kept the hallway We open up the area to the inside. There's an area where there are 2 bathrooms here, so we expanded the one so we can actually make it handicap accessible. The elevator's in front, and then there's a sort of lobby space where we can put public information and things like that. As you get off the elevator, you've got something to see. The hearing room is at one point in time, there were 2 classrooms. There was this classroom, and there was another classroom here. You can sort of see its form.
Yeah.
And there was a hallway that went to that crazy fire escape.
Right.
So, and this classroom was connected to this main corridor by this long kind of connecting space. So we've reopened that, and now we've created the hearing room in the front, and then service areas for the town to the back.
Okay.
So we can expand those offices.
I like it.
And then at this back corner is a new fire stair that goes through all 3 floors, so that you can get from top to bottom in an enclosed, safe, code-compliant fire
nice.
stair.
Very nice.
Nice.
And the existing stair, which is we're allowed to keep under the IEBC, we will keep.
Okay.
And so the hearing room remains sort of as it is. It is historical.
Yes.
It dates to 1952. It doesn't date to the construction of the building, but it dates to the time they built the floor that's underneath it.
Okay.
And then upstairs, we left pretty much as is.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
without an intended purpose to develop it
Right.
for more than storage,
Yeah.
there's no reason to necessarily even designate
Anything, right,
where
what's gonna be.
somebody's storage is versus somebody else's storage.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're all town functions, they all share office space on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily a reason to build a cage the way that the existing. They do. They do. And theirs is secure because
Yeah, it's
obviously
behind
want it
a,
to be.
yeah, I remember that.
But, for shared town storage, and without having a door, because remember that right now, because the fire escape is there, somebody could come all the way up to that floor.
You just love that fire escape, don't you?
My son would love it.
Just keep bringing it up.
But I mean, it provides a way to get into the building, which is, it's beyond the pale.
Yeah,
It
it's-
shouldn't be that.
No, not good.
Right.
So, that's sort of a problem.
Okay.
The elevator, when it comes up, does have an impact on the exterior of the building. By putting it, the choice early on with the Sallyport was to try and integrate an elevator to maybe in addition to the back or something where it wouldn't be seen. In
Right.
this particular case, it is gonna, if the elevator accesses the 3rd floor, it's gonna require kind of a dormer at its location.
Okay.
In order to
be
meet the
covered.
code requirements, it has to be 12 feet above the floor,
Yeah.
so that nobody's crushed in
Got
a
it.
working elevator
Yes.
accident or something like that.
Could ruin your
So
whole
that's,
day, I know.
that's required, but it's on from the approach side. It's sort of hidden by the primary mass of the building, and so I think that you can see that image there. You wouldn't
Yeah.
really see it
Okay.
from the way you primarily see it. The
Right.
neighbors on this side would see a little bit more, but it's a small
Yeah.
dormer.
Yeah.
It just has to be what it needs to be in order to work.
Got it.
So that's the notion of where you might head toward. And then in the report, in the section that I handed out, it's around page where the conclusion starts to happen. There's an area for the recommended rehabilitation approach,
What page is that?
and it's on the 3rd, page 25. Which
Okay.
yes, because right now the sections 1 and 2 have their own page numbers.
Okay.
So it's near to the. You're finding it.
Recommended
I got it.
rehabilitation approach?
Yeah.
Recommended rehabilitation.
Okay.
Right here.
Okay. So this goes through.
25 or 39.
This goes through the ways that I try to look at renovating the building over time. Because there's some things that should be done right away, and I speak specifically about all the renovations should be done in keeping with the Secretary of Interior standards for renovation, so that the options for chasing funding from public sources remains open to you.
Yeah.
Right.
There's nothing that you can do anything you want with this building, but if you want to chase additional monies, oftentimes it's a requirement that you follow these standards.
Got it.
Oh, yeah.
And they're good to follow anyway, because they're just a sort of an approach that's going to result in a good quality.
Yeah.
Plus,
and-
the
and-
National Register of Historic Places, we have to follow certain things too, don't we?
You are currently listed, and they can take away a listing. I've never actually seen it happen in real life. But I've heard it threatened. I've heard it threatened. I have heard it threatened, and you know, and I believe that sure, if you were to do something really audacious,
horrendous. Yeah.
but I think that what's intended here is going to meet those standards.
Okay.
Okay. The first section talks about hazard mitigation, and that deals with things that I found that are dangerous to the building or to the people who are in it.
Okay.
And those are things that I think you should get on right away.
Okay.
And one of the things that I included in here is the window replacement.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We
Not
talked
the
about
window replacement, but the window repair.
Cut it every year.
Because I think that the fact that you have these fixed,
I know.
frankly,
In the air.
although I tried to group this in a way that makes a logical sense of progression.
Okay.
If you're going to
Right.
take the storm off and fix the windows so they don't rot in the weather,
Yeah.
then that might be a good time to do the other repairs to the window
Yep.
Around it.
and
Yeah.
do all that stuff that's got to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense.
You don't have to. You could just take the hazardous piece is the fact that I don't think anybody should be working in a building where there is not a single operable window.
I know.
Like you're totally reliant on somebody
know.
coming through the door
It's horrible.
for occasional fresh air.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know.
So
It's always been.
the window replacement is in this early list, as are some things where we noted loose masonry up high. That's could potentially be a fall hazard. There are, and I'll let you go through this. I'm sorry that I didn't send this to you earlier. I didn't realize I was coming here quite as soon as I should have. Because I thought it would be more of a work session, which is kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I feel bad for the
public.
people on the public. So it addresses things like the public hearing room on the second floor. Currently, because there's not enough egress, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Right.
That room should be posted for a lower number. And I think it's your habit that you don't using it at all.
Right.
So it's not really that big of a deal, but it's, I figured $45 for a sign that says this room shouldn't have more than
Yeah,
49
good
people in
point.
it.
Right.
Good point.
That's all here. So
Okay.
these things are.
We could do that now.
There are things like there's unfinished drywall in the stairwell of the police department area. And a stairwell is a place where, it's a critical spot where if there's a fire event and you need to get out of the building, it's supposed to be a safe place to be. And
Yeah.
without it being closed, it's not providing that.
Right.
So that should just, it should just be done.
Although that part of the building I think is worse than the town hall part. If you ask
Well,
me.
They
They
left.
left.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they
so,
agree.
So there's things here like, separating the mechanical room is not separated from the rest of the crawl space. The mechanical room is like if there's going to ever be a fire in a building like this, the fossil fuel burning equipment is a good place it might start. And you don't want it to be spreading underneath the building
Yeah.
before anybody finds out about it. Okay. Eventually, there should be a sprinkler system in here, but that's something that's going to take a little more time and a little more money. So I'm trying to put things in here that you might be able to find a contingency fund or something to get going on this stuff
Yeah.
sooner.
Norm, is this actually your list, your priority list from?
They're not.
one
They're
going
not.
on,
They're
or
not.
Not exactly.
They're not grouped in the line. These are the things that are that I consider hazardous.
Yes.
Okay.
But
But
the
they're
thing
not
at the
in order
bottom
what
is
we
not
should
more
fix
important,
first?
less important
Okay.
than one at the top.
Okay.
All right.
Generally, they're in the way I was thinking about
As
them, which is
wondered.
looking at where I originally categorized the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'd be happy to, if you had questions about that, try to help.
Yeah,
Because one of the things that
that's what we
often
should do is prioritize.
We
and
absolutely
how
should.
we do it.
We do have some building funds that we should start using.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that would be helpful is if you say, we have a budget that's $36,000, because it just came back from who knows where.
Yeah.
Oh, how should we
Yeah.
use it?
Yeah.
Oh,
know.
hey, that's a good point. 36. He was listening.
But whatever, the point is, whatever your budget is, then we could look through this and try to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make a project set that works for
Yeah, that
that.
makes
Right.
sense.
Okay, so that would be helpful.
Okay.
The next set of things that sits here is a group of things that are listed as high priority maintenance. And they are things that relating to basically, the building is subject to wear and tear from the weather.
Right.
And the more that it's open to the weather, and the water's getting in and continuing to like damage things, the faster that deterioration is going to happen.
Yep.
So these things are, there's maintenance to be done everywhere.
Yeah.
But like fixing the dent on the interior wall is less important than fixing the dent in the outside wall
Got it.
where water's getting in.
Sure.
So it looks to try to prioritize and put those things that are impacting the health of the building in the long term and get them in a group first.
Yep.
Okay, so again, once these things are done, you can move on to this list. And it sort of depends. I don't know if this will be, a 1-year list or a 10-year list by the time we're done.
Right.
And either way, that's most communities have to spread it out over time.
Oh, this is great how you did this.
I love it.
It's so detailed, yeah.
Okay. And then the next section deals with other deferred maintenance items that are incidental. The whole list only adds up to $26,000, but they could wait.
Okay.
And because they're incidental, it may be that like if you've got somebody who's got an afternoon with nothing to do, because the town has town people who could.
Oh, you mean volunteers?
Could do those.
They're called
Or
volunteers.
volunteers. I actually thought, I wrote volunteers and then took it out because I thought, who would volunteer? But if you could get them,
Yeah, there's a big push for that in the past.
well, it's like the select board, you guys are all volunteers.
Absolutely.
No, we get paid.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Big
I think in some ways, my experience is like that's where, you get people who
Well,
are
like we had Craig.
with the town government, they're here on a Saturday because
Craig
they got
painted
nothing to do.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
D-
I mean,
and now he's the DPW director, but he was shortly after he was hired. I guess they had some downtime when he painted the second floor walls that were really in bad
Fine.
shape.
Yeah, in the jail
Yeah.
too.
So that could happen. So then you get to things that cost a little more money.
Yeah.
And really, the last two are all tied to the renovation.
Yeah.
But in looking at it in general, one of the things that I see is there are ways that you could get ahead. And if you don't want to go to a situation where you have to bond a big project or do something else or even move the police out, the police could benefit from having a sprinkler system in the building.
Oh, yeah.
So getting those things done and taking them on before you actually engage in the renovation has the end result of making the temporary conditions safer
Yep.
and decreasing the cost of the permanent solution.
Got it.
So I pulled them out trying to say like, well, what could be, if you put a system like this in, how much modification would you have to do when you demo the interior finishes and build new finishes? There'd have to be some modification, but in its core, those kind of systems can be adjusted for what the new system is. The trunk lines might stay the same.
Yep.
And knowing what the design solution is going to be, you could lay things out so they solved both purposes.
Yeah.
So you sort of work toward that.
Got
So
it.
so I basically was able to pull, $200,000 worth of things out of that later renovation.
Okay.
And then the last one. And the last one deals with the specifics of what else is left to go from what we've done to what's here.
Right.
And this is the place that has the most
around there.
question marks because, for instance, there's
That's what I was looking at.
there's money in here to fix the floor. But are you going to fix the floor or not? Like that's a decision to be made. They could cut a big chunk of money out of this.
Yeah.
There are elements that can be done to sort of adjust where this is going.
Yeah.
Because this is the numbers I put in are based on my personal experience, some projects that I've got bidding right now, and like national standards through MS Means. Okay, but I'm not a contractor. I spent a reasonable amount of time trying to do this, but it's more likely that they're right relative to each other. And the more things you put together, the more right I'll be.
Yeah.
But if you take any one particular thing, I could be far off on a particular number.
Okay.
I want to be honest about that.
That's fine.
But by the time you get to these things, I'm just seeing it be 4 years or 5 years or more. Like construction costs right now are ballooning dramatically. If you had an ability to go ahead with this, I'd be working to. I'd encourage you to go because we're seeing year over year construction cost increases of 10% a year. Far outpacing inflation.
Right.
But you know, they just, part of that is because there's not enough people who are looking for work. So you're finding like there are people who are like, well, I'll do that if for $100. You know, it's only with I could do it for 20. Well, that's fine, but I'm not going to do it for.
I see.
Yeah.
So there's some play there, and what will happen in the 5-year time frame? I'm not an economist. I'm an architect.
Yeah.
So it's relevant, so you're aware that there's going to, you know, there's still a big chunk to come. It still
Let me
adds
ask
up
you something
to.
though about this number. Are these stages though? Because and what
They're
I
kind
mean
of
by
stages. They can be stages.
can they stage? Because like you got hazard mitigation, high priority maintenance,
They're intended to go in the order that they're in this
deferred.
list.
But if you jumped around, would that affect something else? Because
No,
I'll give you
I
an
mean,
example. Because we before this started, we were going to replace the flooring in
Yeah.
the building, and you're kind of like, no, I'd wait till this is done, which is great. So if we jumped around, would that harm us?
I included in here somewhere in the
The
maintenance.
floor before the windows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I started putting in here maintenance of things, patch existing finishes and maintain them in this long-term deferred maintenance. Just recognizing that if you're going to stay there, if the other projects are being delayed, you're going to spend more and more because if you're in the building, you don't want to stop taking care of it.
Right.
Right.
So this is like 15% of fixing it all. And it's just like, well, if you stay there longer still, you might have to spend that again. It just sort of recognizes that like you should plan to spend and continue to spend maintenance money on the project. So I tried to get some of that in there. Taking them out of order is fine. I was trying to think about, you know, what's more important like, in terms of what's done, and then how to break it down so that you don't do something like if you went and replaced all the floors this year and then in 2 years you decide you're going to gut the interior and
you
do something
waste
new,
money.
then you're throwing away all that
Yeah.
all the floors.
Right.
So I tried to put them in a logical order where you're not undoing the work that you're doing in the short term.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
Are there grants available? Are you aware of any? I mean, this study was done on a grant, and,
Yes.
and our hope was that because we had this study done, we'd now be eligible for follow-on grants
Right.
for some of this stuff.
Different things are eligible for different grants.
Yeah.
And it's really the grant giver that gets to decide.
Right.
You know, LCHIP funds preservation-related pieces. Okay, so the preservation-related pieces that LCHIP might fund could include the masonry work on the exterior, fixing the windows instead of, you know, because a lot of people will say, oh, let's tear these windows out.
Yeah.
Put in new windows. And it's like, no, you don't want to do that, and LCHIP doesn't want you to do that, and they're willing to help you with that.
Okay.
The Moose Plate Grant Program
Yeah.
gives small grants regularly for readily identifiable projects
Okay.
that are like preservation based.
Yeah.
So you could, you know, redo the entry, redo 2 windows. You know, just pick something that like gets
Right.
a budget that's going to fit their window
Sure.
and take it in.
Okay.
For the windows, what I've described and envisioned for dealing with those double hung windows that span from floor to floor
Yeah.
Yeah.
and are kind of a problem with this with the separation
I know.
of downstairs spaces and upstairs spaces.
Right.
Yep.
So what I've worked toward is a sense that on the lower level, each window will get a valance at the interior, where instead of having the system that has the ceiling and then this airspace above the ceiling and then there's a structural floor that's got depth and then there's a floor system. You know, it's got a lot of height to it.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the things I'd like to do is to build a valance at each window location so that you can see inside from standing in the lower office looking at the window. You can see more of the glass.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there'll be the suspended ceiling will be pulled back.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then on the upper level, where you know there's been a start and an attempt to sort of create these like low half moon kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think what we'd like to do is to open it up as much as possible, visually, but not acoustically. And so what I thought we'd do is to build it out and frame in an interior storm window, a fixed glass or it could be a plastic, something you can't kick your way through
Right.
Accidentally, but something that lets you see and get as much light from that window, which is in the wrong place.
Right.
I can't fix that. But lets the light in, won't let children fall out, and because it's got a solid separation, like that's where the wall is between the downstairs space and the upstairs space.
Right.
So there's less sort of open communication
Okay,
between there.
okay.
Part of the challenge with this building system is somebody else already invested in all these exterior walls where they've thickened the walls and put some kind of insulation in there.
Yeah.
And there's really not a good vapor barrier. I haven't seen anywhere in the system, especially when you look at how those are all open at the perimeters of these windows. And so the decision to close that or open that is something I'm not sure what the right answer is. It might take a little bit of work to see if there's a problem.
Yeah.
A masonry system like this doesn't do well when you put a lot of insulation on the inside of it. Because if you're very successful at that, then in some ways, like the bricks stay healthy because there's a little bit of heat coming through.
Yeah.
It's like it's going through, it's drying out.
Right.
And when you make it so it's cold, then it doesn't dry, and when it doesn't dry, it's subject to more spalling and freezing of water, like in the system. So it's, and a building like this has some inherent properties where it's, putting heat into the walls at night and receiving it back in the daytime. And so there's sort of a flywheel effect that's it's above my pay grade, but you get a little bit of sense of how that's working. So the right answer is not to over insulate.
Okay.
The right way to do it may be what's here, or may require that we actually remove that and put in something different. I don't like spray foam as a material, but one of the places where it seems to be doing pretty well is on the interior face of a masonry structure.
Fascinating.
So
Okay. So
that's
investigating to do.
that's where that is.
Yeah.
So in this report, there's lots and lots of history. Some good reading there.
They referenced some guy named David Wool.
Yes.
Yeah, he's there.
You know that?
He's all over the
vaguely
place.
familiar.
That guy's been all over the
Rural
state.
Town Hall
It's all
talk.
over the place.
You guys know who that is?
Not a clue.
I'm just so glad to meet him. I thought it was like
met
Nice
him?
pictures
not
too.
till
Nice pictures.
really
too.
He can sign that when you leave.
Yeah.
some other meeting.
Yeah, he can give it to us.
It's like, when I first moved to New Hampshire, I thought like you did every nomination.
Only
But that's where I work. I guess because I took a job in Meredith.
How many have you done, David?
I lost count.
20? More?
Oh no.
Oh, number of buildings, 100.
Oh wow.
Well, 20 every district, That's up.
We can count higher than 20.
So
All right. Well, it's exciting stuff. I mean,
I didn't think we'd ever see
no,
the-
this is
This,
good
but
stuff.
now I see why it took so long. It's a lot.
well, and we see, a lot of the history stuff
Yeah.
stayed. We got early, and we've just been sitting on because we needed to take the design forward
Yeah.
in order to establish. We had to do the program, then we had to design, then we changed the design to accommodate extra people and getting rid of the police department.
Yeah.
Getting rid
Getting
of
rid
it.
Moving them.
Relocating.
They're moving to somewhere better, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
So what's the next step? This now has to go to the state?
Well, I was gonna say
Do we have to do
I'd give
something?
you guys a chance to read that and the priorities, and if there's
Okay.
anything in there that because one of the things I want to recognize is that the priorities I picked are strictly based on the building and my observations.
Right.
Yeah.
There may be some reason that some decisions have been made in the past because funding came from some particular source or some other reason why you want to do this instead of that.
Right.
I'd like to incorporate any changes you want to see
Okay.
ahead of sending it to LCHIP.
Okay.
But
But that has to be done by December 30th?
so But if you
Okay.
could,
Is that correct?
if you could like take a look at it in the next
sessions.
Yeah, definitely.
week or two.
Okay.
We do, there's a deadline, correct?
Yes.
Oh, then we
Yeah, we'll
do
set
it
up a,
this, we better do it
We want
this
to
month.
get
We'll do it.
refunded.
yeah,
Yeah, so,
okay,
and then we'll just send it to them.
okay.
They need a certain amount of time to look at it. And then when they'll come back with some edits, which we'll make, and
Okay.
we'll go.
So on this, are we to assume all this and sending it in and working on it, that the police department is not going to be there? You see what I'm saying?
That's what, that's one
Yeah.
of the, that's what this
That's
report
like a
concludes.
major
We
thing.
It is a
conclude-
major
Because
thing.
this
Well, I mean,
Plan doesn't
we've
include
talked
it,
about
so
it for a number of different
we're gonna
reasons
Yeah.
that
go for
makes
the
perfect
funding,
sense.
do we have to, that's what
Yeah,
I mean, if,
yeah.
in the December, in our report in December, do we have to identify what we're gonna do with them?
No.
No.
No, this is,
No.
no.
Right, it's not until you get to the third
To the construction.
phase
Yeah.
that-
Okay.
that-
Yeah,
that-
no,
that
So we can
affects
still
the police.
go
We
by
can make the
list
assumption that
that-
we
And
will
you
be
could use, and you could use the
relocating.
first part,
Yeah.
if you, even
The
if you
windows
never,
and
even
all
if you
that
never
stuff.
move the
Yeah.
police
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so we just,
It's still
Okay.
relevant to the maintenance of the
Yep.
building.
Okay, good.
Proper.
Okay.
The
Great.
other part comes later, and because one of the things that you're gonna need to do, the logical thing to do that's missing here is like, well, when the other building is clearly identified and
Yeah.
where they're gonna go, then you've got to like actually plan to
Yeah.
execute and have that space available before
Yep.
you demo where they are now.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Fran, can I give Susan McLeod some recognition for
Yes.
writing this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So people knows
Yes.
Susan McLeod wrote the L-CHIP grant to
Yes.
get this report done.
Yes.
Her and Katie
And those are
Marr
hard.
worked very hard to get the warrant article passed.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yeah, that's a lot of
definitely.
work.
We
Twice,
owe
yeah.
we owe them a debt of
twice. This took
gratitude. This
over
is
3 years to
Yeah.
kind of get here.
yeah. So we are
Before
grateful.
my time.
Well done. Well done.
Yes, indeed.
It was very
Thank you, Charlie.
humbling when they awarded the L-CHIPs. I went with Katie and Susan
Oh,
to Concord.
Mm-hmm.
The competition is quite
Oh, yeah.
quite something. Yeah. Here we are, our little town hall, and some of these towns and cities got massive, massive grants. They
Yeah.
all came with their suits and their town
Yeah.
planners, and you had 3 members of the Heritage Commission from Ashland there. But I think I think this was one of the first project the new Heritage Commission undertook. It was Susan McLeod. Lee Sharps was the ex officio, me, and David Rule. And did I say Katie Ma?
You did.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Several times.
Okay. I'm trying to remember because
Yeah.
this was one of the first things we tackled as the new Heritage Commission.
Yeah,
and,
several years now.
Yeah, it was quite gratifying that that we got chosen.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we had to sell it to the town.
And we had to sell it to the town.
Yeah.
It took 2 goes,
Yeah.
but finally we got the votes.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank David Rue for providing the history. That
Yes.
was a large component.
Absolutely.
And this was necessary as part of
Absolutely.
the
Oh, yeah.
L-CHIP
Absolutely.
to have the history of
Yeah.
this building including. And if we had
That's
to go
right.
out and try to do it all ourselves, it
Yeah.
would have probably been quite daunting
Oh,
for us.
indeed.
So
And
we got
longer.
the-
And
it's taken
in my
longer,
wildest
too.
dreams, I couldn't have imagined anything like this.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I
it's
have to
so
admit-
gratifying
I know.
to see the product.
Eli and I happened to be in the office when Norm stopped by in the summer, so we saw the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of kept it to myself. I did
Yeah.
share it with Katie and Susan. I said, it was kind of wow. But
Oh,
then
yeah.
now that I'm here sitting at this table, it's the same time. We're going to really have to pick and choose
Oh, yeah.
how
Sure.
we
But
do
at
this.
least now we have a roadmap.
Yes, we do.
You know,
yes, we do.
As daunting as it is, it's less daunting that we have this roadmap than
Yes.
when we were walking around the building and seeing this, that, and the other thing, and oh my goodness, where do we start?
Which seems like it was recent, but
It was
actually 2 years.
I know, I
It's been
know.
2 years.
In the windows, remember the first
Oh,
go
yeah.
around?
I
it-
do.
What, $60,000 was the warrant out of
Yeah,
the
I remember.
windows, and it didn't pass.
No.
But now we have more information
Right.
and we can do it in a more
And
organized.
proof, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Norma.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
yes.
Please let me know.
And
if-
again,
And your
Susan
firm,
and
of
David,
course.
thank you for all your
And
hard work.
Susan, David, and your firm.
And my son
Yes.
Eric,
And your
And your
son
son
Eric. I know he's enjoyed this presentation.
whose mom is in Washington D.C. tonight.
I see, okay.
So,
Good man.
Thank you.
you must be relieved too that this is finally,
That's
just a step.
In
Just
this,
a step,
in this
okay.
form.
Yes, great. Okay.
so these all stay here? These are all
The
ours?
drawings, I seem to have lost a pad of, a notepad.
Check David.
It's underneath.
There it is.
Here's the other. Okay.
And
Okay.
again, this is first,
Is that
I'm sorry I didn't give you so many colored.
That's okay.
But I realized like it was just crazy to keep making more and more
No,
colors.
that's fine. We'll get together in a work session and kind of go through this, so.
Say, I'll take this home and,
Thank you.
Electronic copy, I can read it here.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Eli.
why don't we make the first meeting date and, you know,
Okay.
say, let's read this for a week and do it
Good
as soon
idea.
as we can because,
Okay.
you know, we got Thanksgiving coming up.
Yeah.
I know. All right, you want to check your calendars?
Or we
Whoops.
should leave a week to look to
did anybody
read
else
it.
have any questions about this? No?
Well, here's a question.
Yeah.
What do you think it's all gonna cost?
Uh-huh.
Well, if you just look at his
I got a
cost,
number
Yeah.
for you.
He's got a
That's
guesstimate.
why it
Well
was
over
probably one,
$1,000,000.
well over a
And here's Another
million.
question. What's it gonna cost to relocate the police department?
I
And
don't
where?
know. They'd go here.
yeah, next
Over
door,
where?
next door,
Next year, where the
Where are they
electric
going?
department,
to the town office.
So the police department is only gonna have that little office?
No.
no,
they have
no,
upstairs
they'll
too.
have
There are two
upstairs
bays.
and there are 2 bays.
And the office space.
There's an upstairs.
And that'll be enough
And
for
then
them?
upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they said.
PD wants to move.
Wants to move here. They want the 2 bays badly.
So these trucks will go up in the new building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where they were supposed to go.
Make sense?
That's what we were
That's
told.
okay. What's that
That's a
renovation
good
gonna cost?
space.
There's a question.
When I asked
The
Chief
grant
Oldham-
only went so far.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just.
We had
Yeah.
to pay more to have Norman answer that.
No, but you're right. Yeah.
No, I think Norman,
Yeah, oh,
he
yeah.
did provide a basic design for next door, did he not? Didn't he give
Oh,
it to
really?
you?
Yeah. No,
Anyway.
Oh.
just to see if it would work.
Yeah.
Chief Ulwick expressed
And it
that
would
he
work,
didn't
right?
think it would be that much for them to move over there.
Right.
Because they really aren't working with much
Space now.
space
As it
now
is.
or safety
It's
equipment
moving
there.
their stuff here, but
Right.
That's,
Okay.
it's,
Oh, yeah, don't worry, yeah.
This is just an opinion.
it's
No,
If
fine.
you're
no.
gonna do it, don't send them down here without fixing the place up.
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really suitable for the police
That's right.
department.
Right.
I don't think they would come
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
without
Build
that.
it and they will come.
Build it, they will come, yeah.
That's a good idea.
No, I think most of us were surprised when we heard that they wanted to come
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
I know.
Okay,
This is
Thanks again.
Respond to that architect.
That was probably the other guy.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh, no, and he's low-tech, he's gonna be lost without that.
yeah, no kidding.
Thank you for finding that.
Thank you.
Gosh, you could have stayed.
So,
Okay, so what do we,
well, we have a meeting already scheduled for next Tuesday night. I don't know if you want to include this. It's-
what's
we
next
probably-
Tuesday
I won't
night?
be at next Tuesday night's meeting because it is
Budget committee. Well, then we need to reschedule that because
What are
that
we
was
doing
our,
on Tuesday?
Oh, yeah.
evaluation.
That's only his review.
A review. All right,
Okay.
let's not take meeting time.
Yeah,
Just,
okay.
you know, send your availability to Charlie. We'll need to reschedule next Tuesday night as well as come up with a work session to go
Or
over
just
this.
email me what
Go-
you
Yeah,
guys
email
think
Charlie your availability,
Okay.
okay?
and what you think about the L-chip study.
Okay.
Great. Okay, any other new business? Old business, any old business? Any select board items?
I would just like to reiterate what Charlie brought up at the last meeting, when we discussed about how the town manager report had become kind of
Boring?
Yes. I would say, yes, stale. I recall when the department heads would come,
Yeah,
and give their reports.
Yeah.
And I always like that
Yeah, I did too.
because,
I did too.
you know, these are the people who are doing the job, and they should be doing the reporting.
Yeah.
And if people have questions, they should take some questions
Right.
too. So,
Well, also it gives them a chance to give much more information. You know, the statistics are interesting, but as we heard in our budget meetings, the departments do a whole lot more than the town
Oh, yeah.
town knows about.
Absolutely.
And the town should know about all of the amazing things that the departments do
Yeah.
and how well they work together. And I think it's important information to get out.
so I
Absolutely.
would suggest maybe January.
Oh, I think we should start it. I think
Right
we
away?
should start right
Okay.
away.
Okay, so we'll have Charlie.
Yeah, you
pass that on
organize
to
it
the-
at least one a month.
Did you like the idea of the December, so everyone
Yeah.
can come and do
Yeah.
a year
Yes.
review in
Yeah,
December?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then, yeah, that's a
great.
great idea. And then moving forward, you know, highlight one department on the business meeting. Okay, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up again, Kathleen. Anything else? Any other select board items?
I just want to remind people, because I guess there was a question that came up about people taking notes at meetings, that the right to know law, which is online, anybody can access that, says that any person can tape record, film, take notes by computer, by hand, videotape, take pictures at an open meeting, and you don't have to ask permission to do that. That is your right. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that.
Great, thank you, Lee. Anything else?
No?
We don't have any non-public, I assume? Okay, in that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seeing as how you and I